Welcome to the Solar Coaster, a renewable energy themed talk show right here in lovely Maui County. Aloha and welcome to the Solar Coaster live show here on our third series recording regarding something really special for Maui. And I'm here with a good friend, Mr. Leo Caires. Leo, did I say your last name correctly?
Leo Caires, perfect.
Leo Caires. So it's a real pleasure to have Leo on the show. It's the first time on the Solar Coaster. Welcome. I'm excited to talk with you. And so Leo, we're here. We're ready to have this amazing discussion for the future of Maui about something that is kind of been on our minds for a while, but the opportunity wasn't always there. And it looks like this opportunity is in front of us today. And we're talking about a cooperative, of course, right? So and this is really something that is important to you and near and dear to your heart. So why don't we just start out with an introduction of Leo. Tell us a little bit about yourself and let us know who you are.
Awesome. And mahalo, Josh, for the opportunity to have a visit with you today. Yeah, a little bit about myself. I was born and raised here on Maui. Half of my family comes from Hana, on the east side of the island. And the other half of my family came from Portugal in 1888. And I grew up in a very rural community on the North Shore of Maui. Grew up around agriculture, livestock, and being in a rural community created a lot of learning opportunities and allowed me to take chances to do different things and take risks and pursue things that I believe will be beneficial to Maui in the long run. I went to school in the mainland, on the continent, and had an opportunity to play football and travel around the world. I lived in Europe, Spain, and really brought a lot of knowledge and network and brought that back home with me when I returned back to Maui to start a family. And so I live currently in Maui, up country, and continue to engage in agriculture and really enjoy my rural community. And with the cooperative, really aligns with the set of values for rural communities. And entire county of Maui is considered rural in nature as well.
Yeah, and that's you hit a lot of great notes on that intro right there, Leo, because Hana, you can see Hana actually in my map over here, right? And Hana is such a special place. So I often think to myself, I'd like to live in Hana for a little while. I have some great friends out there, and what an experience it must have been to grow up in Hana. That must have been really special, especially in terms of connection to nature, connection to agriculture, like you pointed out, right? And then Maui, people may not think about Maui necessarily externally as a rural or pastoral place, but it very much is. And very much of this community is a rural agricultural environment. And it's such a beautiful place. I've been lucky to live here, to spend my not quite 2 decades here, but raise my family here. So my daughters kind of had the growing up experience of Maui, and I feel super fortunate for that. That's just a wonderful thing. So when we think about this this rural component, this is actually really critical to being able to take this step towards an electric cooperative. And this is the Kalakaua Electric Cooperative, or Kalakaua Power and Light. What is the actual title?
Oh, good question, Josh. Yeah, really the impetus for finding a name for the electro cooperative came from a couple of aspects that you mentioned. Hana in that region of Maui is a uh, highly productive region due to its climate and environment, rainfall, and the the location that my family grew up in Haneo'o um, has a local ia fish pond, and so I had spent a lot of time um, really thinking in ahupua'a systems,
Yes.
which is a cultural way of thinking in terms of really developing, I would call it an island leadership state of mind, really trying to um, best use your resources for the benefit of the community, but really thinking long term for the community. And so um, so going into that sort of naming process, it was, what figure and or many figures in Hawaiian history really represented a sense of island leadership, of having the interests of the people and the community at heart. And so when I thought about it, I thought about, well, a lot of times, you know, leaders have many challenges that they face and issues that they face. And one of the things that really resonated with me was King Kalakaua, David Kalakaua. And he was very instrumental at the time, facing many challenges, um, looking at innovation and technology that he learned from his travels, and wanted to introduce innovative ideas only if, and I say only if, it served the community or the people of that community well.
Yeah.
And so, he is known for being the first Hawaiian leader of these lands to introduce electricity into the infrastructure of Hawaii. And so, to me, it was, of many other reasons, that he would represent, and we would want to name it after him, was for what he did, that has really impacted a lot of people. Um, and I believe, that it just felt as the appropriate name right now at
It's a
this
great
time.
name. It's a great name. And you touched on some really important, I think, pieces too. You mentioned um, not only am I saying it right? Kalakaua?
Kalakaua.
Kalakaua. I like to check myself on pronunciation as much as possible. So Kalakaua. And what I understand is that not only was he did he bring electricity? Did he bring the technology to electrify the state house, the palace? Was it Iolani Palace?
Yes.
Maybe. Yeah. So, but that marked at that time in history, I believe he and the state building and those facilities were the first state buildings to have electricity. So not only something's let's say a milestone and something momentous for Hawaii, but on a global scale, actually was the first. If I'm not mistaken, I remember covering this in a show a while back.
Yes.
That's quite a thing, right? So literally, Hawaii was right on the leading edge
Yes.
all so many years ago.
Yes. He was a figure who really had a deep understanding, among many other leaders of during that time and before, um, coupling, like I mentioned earlier, in Ahapua'a systems thinking with, I would say, a global perspective of
Yes.
understanding the internal forces and really the external forces around him, and was faced with many challenges. And so, we're here in this current time, facing a lot of our own challenges in a modern era.
So and you see the term ahupua'a. Now, I think I might have mentioned to you in past conversations, Leo, but that this term was something that, in a sense, inspired me and brought me to Hawaii ultimately. And it's because I met some really amazing people over the years, 20 years ago, when I was doing some work in Hawaii, Hawaiian leaders. A particular fellow, you might know him. His name was William Isla. Do you know William?
Hmm.
from Waianae. Yeah,
Hmm.
so he introduced that term to me, and we were working on some projects together. But when you think, for other people that may not be familiar with the term ahupua'a, it's a remarkable concept, and I hesitate to try to explain it, but in brief, it is about land management from the very tip. In fact, we could even use this backdrop as a way to look at it. The very tip of the mountain all the way down through the reef systems, and how land management worked in throughout Hawaiian history to preserve and steward the land through generations. Is that pretty much? I think 7 generations was the marker. Is that pretty much what it is, or?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, conceptually, across Polynesia, I mean, for Hawaii, really from the summit, from the source, a highly regarded space, at the summits. But it really allows for an efficient use and with a conservation twist to it on how to, like you said, utilize resources that and a land or the aina provides to a community. And so during these times, the lands were divided in large segments, kind of like a pie triangle from the summit,
Right.
down to the coastline. And what it built was a relationship thinking of whatever you do in your location, you have a purpose in your region, but also you have a purpose and responsibility or kuleana to the people adjacent or down from you and upwards
Yes.
from you. So
Yes.
it's really encouraging, not just thinking of yourself. It's really encouraging thinking of others and for the survival, of a space and keeping it for the next generation. So that's what an Ahopos
Yes.
system represents to me in some way.
Thank you for that. And I think that it's so apropos, so appropriate and relevant to this conversation of an electric cooperative in Maui or Maui County, or the outer islands. We can think of it even in those terms, for Hawaii, because this is really about stewarding our resources for future generations to make this community that is so wonderful and gives so much to all the people that live here, but make it a place where we have a better shot at being able to live here and be a part of this community. Because electricity is very expensive and it's very difficult. It has been historically difficult to kind of manage. So we've got this new mechanism and this new opportunity and this new funding mechanism that allows us to look at the possibility of doing essentially a rural electric cooperative on the island of Maui. So, I mean, this is something that's come up over the years, my friend, on the solar coaster, and we're fascinated by the topic. Of course, we have Kauai Island Utility Cooperative as a state-based precedent, which has recently, in their 22-year history, reduced their electricity costs to below that of Hawaiian Electric across the other islands, which is an unbelievable achievement. And simultaneously, they're upwards of 57% renewables. I spoke to Brad Rockwell at RE Plus, 57% renewables, and they're just now looking at some projects that'll take them up in the 80s and 90s for the next stage. So we have such an amazing precedent at Kauai. And then, of course, there's cooperatives all across the country that can show similar achievements of low cost of electricity and stewarding energy from the perspective of the local community. So that's the basics of it. But let's talk about this idea of a cooperative. How did this come to? Leo, how did you come to this position where you're saying now is the time to look very seriously at electric cooperative?
That's a good question. A number of factors played into my interest and passion to advocate and start to educate my community and others around this very effort. We look back, what are some of the fundamental reasons for the purpose of cooperatives? And when, areas in the country, when the economy started growing and population migration started moving out of the rural communities into the urban districts, that had an impact on output, production, economic development. And one of the reasons for, a cooperative movement was to um, really assist preserving the rural communities. That was one of its fundamental objectives. And speaking with the USDA folks about that, and getting a stronger understanding of what is the value proposition and foundational uh, purpose for a cooperative. And it focuses on the communities that could be left behind, and to make sure that services are there. It allows for these rural communities to be very responsive to each other. They know their communities very well. They know how to keep it safe. And like I said, it allows for what kind of innovation would you let in only if it serves the community very well. And I working in government on different levels. We had gone through the devastating wildfire in Lahaina, and what it showed me was how people in these rural communities were so responsive to each other in the most critical moments when it happened. It's people who lived here were helping neighbors, helping each other, supporting each other through these very, very difficult times. So I think about, preserving that that space in our community, the rural community. Cooperatives are there to support that. Cooperatives are there to enhance responses to their community, to their customer bases. Um, the cooperatives are have access to uh, better priced capital to make investments in their community. And so there's a whole entire host of values and benefits. But one of the things that really resonated with me was um, it's like running your own farm or running your own ranch or your ahapoa or even your own fish pond. Is you have to make a decision for what's best for what you're doing. And a cooperative, the governance allows for the community in that place to self-govern and make critical decisions for the needs of the community and long term. So just in those principles really resonated and aligned strongly to me with going back to a set of Hawaiian values. You're really thinking, how can I keep the community safe? How can we modernize things faster? Um, how can we um, create opportunity if there is surplus or uh, excess revenues? The community can decide where we need to make improvements or secure our own selves. So it really gives that, it allows for that self-governance and that independence, I think, um, that really you need when you operate your own farm or your own local ia. You have to, the area, what's best for it, but what's best for the community. And so there's a lot of positive benefits for me with the cooperative. And so going through all of those experiences and research and observation of disaster, um, you know, the pricing, um, as it stands, the cooperative has a strong opportunity to stabilize or keep rates lower than if it wasn't under the ownership of a cooperative. So as you continue to learn about um, this business model, it really achieves the goals and the values of our community.
100%. It's really interesting when we think about the cooperative model and how it kind of relates to the idea of agriculture and, let's say, making decisions that are in our own best interests. And there are some very specific examples. I had the opportunity to speak with both Doug McLeod and Jennifer Potter prior to this interview. And one of the things that came up, of course, was cost of capital, right? So cost of capital from these USDA sources and maybe other sources as well, but having access to a lower cost of capital allows you to make investments with that savings and or to do various things with that savings. So you're more nimble. You're able to make decisions that are in our best interest. And then when I was talking with Jenny, we came up with something interesting because the way that an investor-owned utility operates, and at least with the current rules that are in place here, you're probably very familiar with this, but the idea that operating and maintenance is actually a profit eroding action. So when operating and maintenance in an island grid that's fragile like ours, it is disincentivized by the ownership. That is a real problem, right? We can't have O&M be delayed or downplayed or looked over in order to kind of further the profit motive. So it's very important to have the right kind of incentives and disincentives in place to be able to make decisions that are to the benefit of the community. And there's a great opportunity there to be able to rebuild the T&D, transmission and distribution system, and to do robust O&M with some of the savings that we see as a result of the new model. So that's like just squarely in line with what you're talking about, stewarding these resources into the future and being able to make the decisions that are the right ones for the community. So not only are we saving money, but we're also able to be safe in this environment. I mean, that's a huge thing. You mentioned that you've seen it from the political side too, right? So you've had a background in the local political environment. So you really have a good, I would say, vision. You understand how these different entities operate with one another. And when you talked about how the community kind of has this ability to self-heal, to care for itself, and the co-op would really kind of further bolster that. I thought that was amazing because we saw that, right? With the fires, we saw how people, unbelievably so, came to each other's aid. I was so proud of this community during that period, despite the tragedy,
It was amazing to me. I mean, I still have, as if it was yesterday, just observation, engaging, helping, and just seeing the pure aloha and care for people that emerged during a time of crisis like that. And it just reminded me that it is still there in our people, in our community. It's never gone away. Um, and unfortunately, it was an event like that that really brought that out. But it is there, and the community cares about each other. And talking about operations and maintenance, it's similar like any piece of equipment. I mean, even like a voyaging canoe or a voyaging ava, you can't just keep operating that thing back and forth to the South Pacific without reinvesting time and resources and human capital into repairing your sail or your hull or aspects for you to be successful. And I see that very similarly in this as an opportunity that our grid will be our own voyaging canoe, that va'a, that we can um, build strong and build its durability to have resilience in storms or bad conditions that we may face. And so yeah, it's important to prioritize and those types of needs. And I know a cooperative really places infrastructure modernization at a very high priority to achieve that.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Now, when we talk about a cooperative, what's the mindset here for Maui itself? I think there's an opportunity for all of the outer islands from what I can see, because those are all rural environments. And so, we've already got Kauai with the precedent set there. I'd say that there could be a conversation for Big Island here, but we're really talking about Maui County, Maui Island. How do you see Lanai, Molokai, and Maui working together or supporting one another? How would you frame that?
First, I would probably address that one thing, if I may go back, about the political arena.
Yeah.
I think the one unique thing about a cooperative is it really breaks down barriers of political affiliation, because it
Oh,
really
interesting.
it doesn't really to me feel that that is the definition of success, or how you're going to go govern. It's really about being responsive to the needs. And I think this could offer a very unifying type of effort within the community, and really build Pelina within the community, because every part of the island, every kitchen table at every part of the island is different and unique, because where they live is different than the other places on the island. And so, when we think about looking outward, how this would mutually benefit the other islands, I think one of the great examples that we have is Kauai. And Kauai took it upon themselves to pursue this avenue. Um, and despite any type of concerns or worry about risks, the risk of failure, those conversations were all there. And they did it anyway because they knew it was for the better of the community. And so it's similar to leaving your shore to go to another place on a canoe that you've never been. So every island has its own heartbeat, because it's its own spirit of how they approach problems. And so Maui is now at a place where there's an opportunity to solve a challenge, and all the other islands will continue to have those internal discussions within their community leaders and groups, and determine if that is something they would want to consider as well. Um, so it's hard to say what the other islands should do, but I think, with going back to island leadership, when you travel and you meet and you talk and you kuka with others, that's how it happens. And so at some point in time, I believe other islands will embrace this as well in some faction, um, to incorporate into their island economy, to help benefit their community. So, I see us as um, leading our own way, um, and being very open to seeing the interests of other leaders across the state. And if they have an interest, I think as Maui, we would be very open arms and exploring how they could journey with us together, on our own paths. And so, it's to be determined really how it would take place and unfold. I think there could be a tremendous upside and benefit long term with electricity prices, electric stability pricing over the long term, and also, um, just really thinking of the next generations down the road, because there is no drive to be profitable. The cooperative is really interested in delivering the best services at cost to its people. So, um, that's a highlight of what a cooperative could bring
You
to the.
know, thank you for that. It strikes me that so much of what you're saying is in line. We're talking about the parallels of ahupua'a and stewardship, but even the way of framing things is very much a Hawaiian vision. That's what I'm hearing. There's self reliance, but there's cooperation between the community on the island. There's this island is different, and different regions are different throughout Hawaii. You said so many things that I agree with, and I find it refreshing because we don't often hear that kind of type of response or type of thought about how to get things done in the modern world today. So it's wonderful to hear that type of a mindset, And then you also said something I thought was interesting in the aloha spirit, and then what we saw coming out of the fires. And then, it occurs to me that, Maui's a bit injured at the moment, right? And then my daughter said it to me once. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I was trying to come up with the words to explain what I was feeling and what Maui was like while she was away at college post fire. And then she kind of I was using a lot of big words, trying to explain stuff to my best of my ability. And she said, Dad, Maui's hurt right now. Maui's injured. And she was speaking about Maui as if she, I think, or it or she were a part of the family. And it was such an amazing moment for me because I thought, whoa, my daughter is able to understand it better than I am, what this is. So I'm so glad to hear you using that kind of language and thinking about how the islands themselves can determine their future for their respective needs. And then we're thinking really about where we live right now. We're thinking about the island of Maui. And then if a cooperative were to, and I understand the milestones and the steps forward, we have to, on the one hand, there's the opportunity for an amicable transfer of the assets in a purchase. That letter has been sent, as I understand it, right, to the utility. Then there's the issue of getting the actual funding, the lower cost of capital, and then there's the issue, of course, of doing a evaluation report, right, like a type of analysis. So there's a step-by-step over the course of the next maybe year or so for certain milestones to be met for this to potentially happen. Can you walk us through a little bit of that process, what that might look like in the near term?
Sure. Really, really great question. And I'll try to generalize it as best as I can. There is a lot of details involved in this kind of transformative transaction or change, but you can only take it one step at a time. Um, I just wanted to plug in. I think what your daughter had felt is correct. One of the things about, I think, living on the islands here, as you know, and you've shared, you really get into your sense of feeling, how you feel and how things feel, and it's really by feel. And how do you feel after you talk to someone, or how do you feel from that action? And so it really helps. And I've learned to really have a strong sense of how people feel, and my own senses. And so, yeah, your daughter's thought is right on, because people feel like their island is like their own parent or their own cousin, or it's that kind of love for the space, and you hurt when things go bad or things go wrong, and when you care about things, all you want to do is help, and you're driven to find ways to help, different ways to help, because you just want to accomplish a goal of making it better, making it um, are coming out of it better for our community. So yeah, our community has suffered. They are hurt, um, but I know inside, they have a very strong, I would call it, uh, strong set of commitment to each other to make it better. And so how I see something like this taking place, or what's normally the pathway to it, you normally um, can try and figure it out yourself, but you don't have to, because these type of transactions have already taken place, and there's an over 800, maybe nearly 900 cooperatives across the country. And so you don't have to feel alone that this is something we have to make up or try, without having any kind of uh, uh, plan in place. So part of the process would first start by um, really getting to understand, well, who is involved here. So you have in some communities, you have an investor-owned utility, so very similar to our situation. And what you like to do is you simply want to ask and present that this is an interest, a growing interest in the community, and you present that thought to your servicing IOU. And so we had done that recently in 2025, and our goal is to simply offer a question if there's an interest in working with a cooperative to pursue this. And that's probably the most important question that takes place. No matter what you do after that, if you have your financing, if you have everybody, supporting it from all states of government, you it doesn't really matter if you don't have a willing party to participate in that. So, while we continue to work on all the other things that need to take place, financing, community education, government leader outreach, those things continue today. But at the same time, it's waiting to see um, whether or not, there would be an opportunity to have this conversation in a serious way. The state is going through its legislative process right now, and there's a number of factors that um, and bills that may provide an opportunity for a cooperative. So really, it's we're not here to try and influence any kind of legislation. Our goal is really to do the best effort we can to let the community know, and our local utility know that we believe this is a alternative for our people, and it could be a great legacy decision for everybody involved in this kind of transaction. So, we're excited to see what comes out of it, and in the meantime, we continue to look at the steps that we need to take, and we've already gotten some helpful responses that we've reached out to KIUC, just getting access to bylaws, just getting
Oh, yeah.
getting understanding of some of the things that they have done, and we've they've been supportive to us, and I think we're trying to go through it in some fashion in our way, but at the same time we're fully embracing all the others who have done it already, and asking a lot of questions. You have to ask a lot of questions to go down this path. So that's where we stand right now. I think, if in a speculative sense, if there was an interest to sell the assets, the generation, the transmission assets in Maui, then there is feasibility studies that include such things as load forecasting, um, you know, uh, putting forward the type of security to the lien holder. In this case, it would be a federal, could be, will likely be a federal agency. So there's a whole host of, I would call it, underwriting factors that have to be done correctly and satisfactorily so that you can now be a what they call an eligible borrower. So
Okay.
those things all are moving right now as we speak, and you want to do everything right, and ask a lot of questions, and so that's what we're doing.
Very good. Thanks for clarifying that. I see. So really it's about kind of, there's two things happening simultaneously. One is the outreach to the IOU, the investor owned utility, which is Hawaiian Electric. And then there's the kind of getting all of our ducks in a row, so to speak, so we can be prepared and an eligible borrower, I think was the phrase you used.
That's right. That's
They're
right.
happening in parallel.
That's right. And you know, in the future, I mean, we don't know exactly, um, you know, how all of this will unfold, but there could be an opportunity where, if there's an interest to divest, or if there's an interest to merge, or if there's an interest to consolidate the operations as it stands today, there could be an opportunity for a cooperative effort like ours to position itself to be considered concurrently under all of um, these uh, these analyses that are taking place on what is best for Hawaii. So we want to be positioned, and right, today is not the day. We don't have to be positioned today, but we want to be positioned when that opportunity comes, so that we can be a strong candidate um, for an opportunity to make an acquisition.
I see. I see. Okay, so really, it comes down to those two kind of things happening in parallel, and then when the time is right, if there's a willing participant, meaning the Hawaiian Electric says, yeah, this makes sense for our company, and then we're also in a position that is the cooperative and the group and the island itself to be able to act on that, then it could happen. Very interesting. So I see like that when we think about that, let's say that one stream, the issue a willing participant. The Hawaiian Electric, it's interesting when you think about the let's say the viability of maintaining the outer islands forward, right? I could see that this organization, depending on a couple of different factors, of course, how certain bills unfold and stuff, but I could see that organization saying this this is it would be to their benefit perhaps to focus on Oahu, and then it could be it could actually help their organization become stronger to take a different tack, so to speak. And perhaps it's almost like a partnership in a sense, where we as a cooperative are interested in taking this step, and this could be good for your organization, good for your shareholders even. And that's a very interesting thought process, because it's something that actually helps Hawaiian Electric from that mindset.
Yeah, very, very good question. Couple of thoughts come to mind about that. Really going back to the simple thought of the Ahupua'a system concept. Um, our our community is in most part served by people who live, let's call it our entire Ahupua'a. And Honolulu or Oahu is its own Ahupua'a. And so, you know, part of the idea is we can better cultivate, we could better be responsive, we could better produce, we could better find ways to um, keep the folks who already work in this space on Maui into a new cooperative to, you know, to serve the community as best as it can. Um, you know, um, it's a big decision. It's a very big decision because there's a strong financial interests in this kind of situation. And so, our goal is really to offer a what could be a financial solution to a existing challenge that our current um, utility is going through. um, Nobody envisioned all of us being in this situation. I mean, it has happened, by acts beyond us, and it has happened. But how do we move forward? And you know, we looking at how this transaction would take place, um, in exchange for um, giving something, the community could get a tremendous benefit back. And I think, it seems like that's part of the feel in place is whatever the community decides, what is the exchange in return for maybe sacrifice or maybe forfeiting or maybe the offering, and that's going to be a big part of this. And how does it balance out everybody's interests? Um, so there's a lot of factors, financial factors, that would drive this kind of negotiation. um, and ultimately the goal is to um, really help the situation. It's not here to create any worse problems. The alternative is to work hard and make it better. And I believe that our community can do that. I believe in our people. They've been there through the fires. All of our people have been there through the hardest times with each other. And this would create an opportunity for us to be there each other in our future energy needs in the community for, again, many generations to come.
There's it's interesting because I found myself thinking about something Doug said to me once in the past, a long time ago actually, and we were talking about Hawaii and from our perspective, why it's so special, right? And he used the term aloha spirit, and he said it's I don't want to speak for him exactly, but just paraphrase. And he said it's something that's very unique. We've seen a lot of the world, as you have, and there's wonderful places and there's wonderful kind people, and but a lot of island communities around the world, they don't seem to have this. They don't always have the same kind of fabric that connects the entire thing together. And somehow Hawaii has preserved that through all of its challenges. And I think we call that the aloha spirit. And it's something that's just very real, very visceral. It's not like a something that you don't see it. You see it in people. You know, when you think about the fires, and you saw that aloha spirit just come out so strongly, and the desire to help that you described. When I think about people's perspective on energy and some of the frustrations they've had over the many years that I've been acquainted with that experience in energy out here, I'm very excited to hear, one, how people might feel about a cooperative once they understand it, and two, if they feel the way I think they're going to feel, which is enthusiastic, it, will that become a driving cohesive force to heal after the fire, something that kind of dispels some of the fractioning that's been happening in the community post fire? Could it be a unifying force for Maui to kind of heal itself? That's something that's been on my mind, and you had said that to me as well recently.
Um, yeah, the aloha spirit, is strong, and there's a lot of things behind that, that's intangible. And you think about really a lot of the people that were here before you reflect upon a lot of the challenges, the journeys, the risk taking that people have taken before us.
Yeah.
And so, you know, to me, this is very similar to, yeah, the risk is high, but not taking it is a greater risk, and not
Mm.
finding a better source of resources for your community, um, you know, is something that I think you really think about, and to me, this time creates an opportunity like that. Um, your community, you think about your community is starving, your community is suffering, your community is hurting. Um, you know, if you stay in the same place and mind, how are you going to help your people? And so you're driven by necessity to find a better pathway and try to navigate a better pathway to a better place. So, in some cases, that is like having to leave a shore and go to a place to allow your community to thrive and be healthy again. And this metaphorically does just that. We want to make it better. Um, it's hard. Yeah, we have gone through storms, we have gone through disasters, but at the end of the day, the people who live here are the ones who do the work and do the hana, and commit themselves to doing just their little part in the system, in the ahapua'a system. You just have to do your little part, and everybody, I believe, would have a very strong interest as they continue to learn more about this concept and this business model, and how it resonates with me. I think will continue to resonate with others, in the community. And so ultimately, what drives this is the aloha spirit. Money doesn't drive this. The aloha spirit is going to drive this whole transformation, to me, because you're really thinking about the at the end of the day, are our people healthy and safe? And as a leader, I think a lot of Hawaiian leaders, you want your people to be safe and taken care of, and have a best opportunity for their future and their kids. So this is, uh, very similar in a modern day society. Another challenge that comes to the island, and and without and it takes courage, I think, to know that it is a, high risk, um, high potential for danger, um, but at the same time, that's why you prepare, and that's why you learn, and that's why you get yourself and your community ready for making a transition. So this kind of thing, it wouldn't take, a short time. It would take some time to take place, but I'm confident in our people and our community, um, with a good outreach program and educating them, and for you taking the time to allow this type of dialogue to take place. really helps others get a sense of what this whole thing is about. And I'm just glad to be a part of it, and volunteering my time and to try and put this thing forward and get it to be known in the community.
Fantastic. I think this is a great primer that we've done here for this hour, Leo. And I think that you've really, I always it always amazes me when I take the time to speak to someone like yourself, to Jenny, to Doug, to others, and I look forward to having more conversations. I learn so much from each of you. I really do. And it really helps me to get a much fuller picture on what this opportunity is. I love the conversation about looking back to the challenges in the past that our ancestors, are the people prior to us that lived in this land, that they had to have courage, they had to have faith, they had to take risk, and that inaction is, in a sense, an action as well, right? There's going to be consequences either way. So we need to find that courage, perhaps call on that lineage and that past of tremendous courage that the community kind of hails from. Really, all of Hawaii is such an amazing story of voyagers, right, for over a millennia. And so what a great way to think about this particular journey, to connect it to that previous journey that's so amazing, really, in the history of humanity itself. So I think we've done a really good job here, Leo. Thank you for this. I think you have really got my mind turning and inspired on what could come in the upcoming months and years if we're able to have this opportunity. But so I think we can probably wrap it. Are there any final words? Would you like to share anything at the tail end of this?
I probably would add just the simple idea of, when you think about the islands and Maui, you know, people, we always strive to have healthy people and healthy communities, and we need healthy resources, but we need healthy management of our resources. And so, I think about our family's fish pond in Hana, and if we didn't have enough fish in the pond, or the fish weren't healthy, um, and if I allowed that to happen, what's going to happen to my community? They're not going to have access to sustenance. They're not going to have access to food security. And so you have to think about, well, what are you going to do about it? What do you need to do about it? What's the impact of the algae in your fish pond affecting? What's the sources of water? What's happening above you? So you make all these really conscious evaluations of where you're at based upon what's happening in front of you. And it by necessity, again, it makes you want to come up with new approaches and learn, so that you can solve the problem, so you can have a healthier, a safer community. That, I think, what King Kalakaua did was bring in innovation and innovative ideas, but again, only if it serves its community well, so it can make people healthy and feel safe. And so that's ultimately the goal in this effort that we put our time into. And we look forward to the days ahead. And mahalo to you, Josh, for really making time. And I know you really care about the community, and you care about people knowing of what's going on. And so mahalo to you, and all your effort to helping just really get the message out and communicate that we want to introduce a well-sailed canoe to take our community forward. But we need everybody's help to do that. So that's all. Mahalo for your time. Mahalo nui loa.
Okay, well said, Leo, and thanks for that. I really feel very fortunate to have been able to call Maui home for some time now and raise our family here. It's been we've been very blessed to be here in this wonderful place on the planet. I know that for sure. So I look forward to this journey ahead of the King Kalakaua Electric Cooperative, to looking for perhaps this opportunity of a willing transfer and then also establishing the eligible borrower status of the group and going through the various milestones. And at the end of the day, harnessing the Aloha spirit that we know from being here is so real and so tangible and so visceral, and being able to employ that to this really, really awesome kind of end that we could potentially see soon. So thank you for all your hard work, for your courage. And I'm really excited to talk more with people at Kūʻaiʻala Utility Cooperative, potentially, to some of the local community members, and to some of the other 900, you said, cooperatives that have successfully navigated this process. We don't have to be rocket scientists to do this. It's been done before. It is very possible. So this has been the Solar Coaster, folks. We're here with Leo Caires, and it has been a great number 3 show on the Understanding Cooperative here in Maui. So aloha, and tune in again soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye now.
Aloha.